Going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 78904 if you want to get all technical. I mean, it's 5:30 on the dot on the East Coast, 2:30 West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time. So, of course, I mean, just time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It's called Grinderslive. Joining me today, you know him from such things as the Blitz, as the Bats, as, even an article today on ESPN. I saw you popped up there on .com. It's Derek Carty. Give a shout out to your article about weather.
Yeah, so I mean, I love weather. Me and Roth bro out about weather all the time. Weather goes into the bat. But I wrote an article kind of explaining like why weather matters, how it actually impacts baseball, what you should be looking at, some of the science behind it, hopefully in like a easily digestible format. So check that out if you want, because weather is huge. Weather is huge. And to this day, like I've been doing weather for 5 years now, it feels like. People still are not paying enough attention to weather. So get on that, everybody, or don't get on that. Only if you use the bat, use weather. How about that?
Well, yeah, and DFS, I feel like, you tell me, because you're more attached to the season-long stuff as well, that world, and I imagine you still draft a season-long. I feel like the DFS world is more in tune with weather, and season-long guys don't really think about it. Also because it's like not one specific day, it's 162 games. But you even talked about in that article, like how it matters and how the weather distinctly changes from the first month of the season to the last month of the season. Is that a reasonable assessment that season-long guys don't really care for weather as much as like us DFS guys?
Season-long guys, like I don't think any of them are paying attention to weather whatsoever, which they're making a mistake. But even DFS people, like, yeah, people have started paying more attention to it, but I still don't think like anywhere near enough.
Yeah, I mean, anything we can pick apart and dissect and talk about, especially though we do these shows every single day and you got 6 months worth. So we're always looking to change the conversation, have a new talking point as opposed to regurgitating the same things over and over. And hey, that just leads me to, I'm curious, general thoughts. Last night we saw, we'll talk about the slate in a second, obviously 6-gamer, plenty of time. And it's really, I mean, sometimes you say it's straightforward. It is super straightforward. And you have to turn like your inner blender on or your inner tournament head brain, because there's going to be some really heavily concentrated chalk. And we were talking about it pre-show. We should mention also there is potential, speaking of weather, potential weather issues in Washington. Roth, I presume, will update his article. He's actually not going to be on Crunch Time today, but I would imagine he'll update his article. Earlier today was orange, yellow, but obviously weather changes. Closer we get to lock, the more information we get. And Washington, notorious for doing goofy things weather-wise.
Oh, that's right. It's Washington. I forgot it's Washington yeah.
I think they've done it before where they canceled a game where like they were facing an ace and they had like the worst pitcher like on the mound. And what the rules are, you can cancel, the home team can cancel the game before first pitch, and then after first pitch, it's in the umpire's hands.
Yes, I believe that's right.
So there was the conspiracy theory that like Washington just canceled the game because they knew they were going to get shellacked because they had a terrible pitcher. And today they have Max Scherzer. So in theory, if you apply that, you think they would want to get this game in, I guess. Although San Francisco is the best team in baseball. least now, I guess, I suppose.
They're not even remotely close to the best team in baseball. Yeah, the Nats are the biggest favorite on this slate, so it would make sense that they would try to get this in if they can.
Do you, I mean, does San Francisco win the NL West, or it's
Oh
going to be
my
the
God.
no, you just no
San
chance.
Francisco wins the NL West 1 out of probably 50 or 100 times. Even with
now?
what even now, probably like they project as like I don't know, whatever, like a 70 or 75 win team, like over 162 games, whatever that prorates to, that's the kind of team they are. Like they're not that good. They're not.
I mean, I agree with you, and I agree they've overachieved, and like good for them. Congratulations. And there's still only 1.5 games in front of the Dodgers, and the Padres are lurking as well too. Obviously, Arizona and Colorado, forget it. It's a 3-team race. I'm gonna pull up. I'm curious what the odds are on the fly. But did you have any spin rate assessments? Obviously you can only do so much. And I haven't looked at the Cole spin rate last night. I presume it was down, much like it was down last game. But maybe spin rates aren't everything. When you throw 98 miles per hour, it's not the end all be all. You also hit the ball. General thoughts as far as the spin rate stuff in general, and how are we gonna apply that going forward? It's not just Cole. It's not just Bauer. There's other guys too that have done stuff, and I haven't fully dug in on individual players beyond those guys. General thoughts as far as spin rates?
Yeah. So first I had to look up where the bat has the Giants. So 162 games, just that's the way it projects it. 78 and 84. That would be the projected record right now. So they are still a sub 500 team according to the bat, despite what they've done so far. But yeah, spin rate, all this stuff with the sticky substances and MLB cracking down. I just posted a whole thing in the bat Discord channel. If you have the bat, go over there, read about it. I wrote about how I'm doing it with the bat. Eventually the bat X is going to evaluate everything on a pitch level: velocity, spin, the different types of spin, mirroring, tunneling, late break, like all that fun stuff. It's not ready yet. So in the meantime, the bat is going to account for fastball spin rate. And obviously that's not everything. It's only, a piece of the puzzle, but spin rate does tend to matter the most for fastballs. Fastballs get used the most, and there's going to be some correlation. If a guy's fastball spin rate drops off, then because he's not using the sticky stuff anymore, then his other spin rates are probably going to fall off also. So that is getting accounted for. And then on the bat pitcher pages, I have new columns that you can use for like this spin research, basically like what the guy's spin rate was last year, what it is this year, what it's been over his last few starts, and then kind of like the difference in his spin rate from what it was early in the year to recently. So you can kind of identify the guys that might be being hurt more or less by this. Fun fact, Garrett Cole has had the biggest drop off of anybody over their last 3 starts.
Yeah. And that was kind of sort of anticipated as well. Did you happen to catch the interview when they asked him about, the Donaldson quote and just asking about if he uses it in general? Because did nobody prep him? Did he have no idea that question was coming? That was so weird.
You'd think you'd go in prepared.
Who is the PR guy for the Yankees? I just went on the DK Sportsbook. I pulled it up live as far as what's going on with the division odds for the NL West. Despite the fact San Fran is leading currently, they are still 11-1 to win the division. Dodgers minus 220, Padres plus 175. All right, tonight's slate, Cardi, pretty straightforward. Mad Max. It's Mad Max's world, and that's why we're talking about the weather in Washington. Besides the fact it's a short slate, there's only 6 games going on. But Scherzer against the Giants. Not necessarily the greatest matchup. They are, I guess we can call the Giants, if nothing else, overachievers and pesky. Can we say that? Yeah.
I mean, they're not awful. Like, they're pesky. I think that is a perfectly fine assessment. They're like a league average-ish offense, maybe slightly below average.
And we have the salary for it. The sites don't make it hard enough. We'll talk about it as far as the build. Tell me why we don't play Max Scherzer, assuming we get a clean go as far as the weather. It's not an issue, and obviously in tournaments if it's like a yellow or something like that, depending on what Roth puts on it as far as the color. But going forward, as far as some caution, maybe cash games, I don't know. Tournaments, absolutely by all means go for that ceiling. Why will we not play Scherzer today?
I'm not going to give you a reason not to play Scherzer. He's one of probably the 5 or so best pitchers in baseball. It's a short slate. He's facing this Giants offense that is actually kind of watered down tonight. and like way more strikeout heavy than normal. This projects as the second most strikeout heavy team on the slate after Miami. You have Lamont Wade leading off. You have Duggar, Solano, Jason Vossler in there. Like this is not a full strength Giants lineup. You know, Longo's on the DL. Dickerson's on the DL now. So Yaz is on the DL. So this is as much as San Francisco was overachieving, they even lost some of their best players. So this is definitely a great spot for Max.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the K rate, obviously Max has the biggest K rate as far as this season on this slate. We're talking about 36.1%. You prefer him to face righties as opposed to lefties, counting the lefties up. Like there is a pile of lefties, okay, but they're not great lefties. Like you mentioned, Wade, Belt, fine. Crawford has been awesome. Like he's been awesome dating back to last year too. I'm curious what your thoughts on Crawford is, because it seems like he's definitely changed his swing and he's changed his approach to the plate. He hit 10 or 11 homers last year in the 2 months, and this season he's got now like maybe 14 or 15 after that triple dong day the other day. It was a double or triple. Either way, I got none of them. Very disappointed. I'm very bitter about it because I played Francisco Lindor again. Your Mets ruined Lindor, Cardi. It's your fault. Yeah, but just out of curiosity, do you buy into the I don't want to say resurgence of Brandon Crawford, but he's like 31 and like spectacular. I feel like he's in his 30s, isn't he? It's got to be.
He's 34.
Okay. How is this happening at 33, 34? Maybe asking.
It's not something that you generally see, and when you do see it, it's not generally something that's persistent. So the bat's not super buying in yet, but a lot of that is just kind of small sample size. Like he is doing legitimately good things this year. It's just a matter of he's never done anything like this before, and we only have 2 months of data. But if he keeps this up, the underlying stuff, the StatCast stuff, he could be interesting. But it's definitely not a reason to take you off of Scherzer tonight by any means.
Yeah. As far as righty-lefty splits going back to last year, Scherzer.
I'm looking at Crawford, 94th percentile barrel rate this year. Like that.
He's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. 87th percentile exit velocity on fly balls. Like it's just insane. Like, whew. But you have to expect some regression even to those types of things.
I was looking at the lineup HQ tool here. Of course, if you guys are RG members, you all are familiar with the lineup HQ tool. Among the many things you guys get with RG Premium, Cheese's $1 million musings. I don't know. Is Cheese on the? I believe Cheese is on later tonight. Devin, confirm in my ear. Is that true? Yes, it is. Thank you, Devin. It's always good to hear that Devin's with us. We talk about him being a multitasking producer. He's compiling questions right now in the chat. What up, chat? Do like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We much appreciate that. And fire off your questions. We're going to have plenty of time to field some questions. We're happy to answer overarching questions, general philosophy questions, general like ways of attacking a slate, strategy questions, or even this guy or that guy. Be sure to note, is it for FanDuel, DraftKings, Cash, Tournament, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. All right. Beyond Max Scherzer, our SB2 on DK, potential, number one guy on FanDuel. I guess it's Rogers, right? For Miami. I know Trevor Story is back for Colorado, but he's not the same hitter outside of Coors, and that team is just dreadful overall. And nice ballpark to pitch in as well. Yeah, you have a pitcher to pick on, which is always nice in the National League. The only issue with Rogers for me is you're begging for like 95 pitches. You're begging for 6 innings. But we'll talk about it. There's not much else out. Well, there's some good arms and rough matchups, which we'll kind of dig into, but Rogers seems like the best combination left of talent, ability, and matchup. Is that correct?
Yep, that about sums it up. Like Rogers is pretty clearly the number 2 here. Like if you're not playing Scherzer, weather permitting, and Rogers in cash games, you're just horrible at this. Like there is no other option. That is the only right thing to do tonight. Rogers is really good. Like I've liked Rogers in many starts this year. The bat has liked Rogers. And he projects super well here. Like you said, even with the short leash, he still projects for 22, 23 DraftKings points. The Rockies are horrible. With Trevor Story in the lineup, they go from, the 30th, the last, or whatever you want to call it, the worst offense in baseball to the second worst offense in baseball. That's what Trevor Story does to this lineup. They're just bad. Well above average for strikeouts, monster park downgrade. And Trevor Rogers is good. And we have an extreme pitchers umpire in this one. So just load it up. That's the only right thing to do.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at when I was referencing. I kind of threw myself off there for a second as far as on FHQ, and you guys can get this $10 off your first month if you want just the baseball content. If you want all the sports, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, esports, yada yada, everything with the exception of NASCAR, you can get $10 off there as well. The link's going to be dropped in chat for you guys. Of all the games, we have all the umpires now. We have 5 pitchers umpires, 2 extremes. The extreme pitchers umpire for Ryu, Keuchel, Chichi Gonzalez, and Rogers. The extreme hitters umpire is drawn for Montas and Minor, for what it's worth. And I guess Montas is one of the guys is like, you could certainly step down. He's been kind of a disappointment this year. Is that fair to say as far as Montas overall?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but he's still perfectly solid pitcher. In GPPs, he's the guy that projects the next best. So you can definitely play him to be a little bit different. I would imagine he's going to be the 3rd highest owned pitcher on this slate. So you can play other guys still, but he's totally fine today.
I'm pulling up the DK ownership. Let's see what we have. Obviously, the closer we get to lock, the more refined these numbers get. And also if Washington gets rained out or something goofy there, that would change the numbers as well. But you are correct. Scherzer, this is DK. So 2 pitchers got a roster. 65% for Scherzer. It's a huge number, but it makes a lot of justification for that. Rogers at 59%, then Montas at 26 against Kansas City. Do we have a Kansas City lineup? Is that correct for us? It looks pretty standard. Yeah, pretty standard lineup there for Kansas City. There are some a good amount of Ks in the middle once you get beyond Merrifield and Santana. Sal Perez, plenty of power, but he's willing to strike out a good bit, as well as Soler, Dozier, Michael A. Taylor. You love seeing there as well if you're going to roster yourself some Montas. Working our way down as far as other options. Well, so Erod, I think, is a pretty decent pitcher, but I don't really want to pick on Houston, especially Houston getting the ballpark upgrade here. And Houston,
I like Erod.
Okay, sell me on Erod because he's cheap. I guess that's one of the selling points.
Yeah, so I don't love Erod in a raw sense. On a full slate, I'm ignoring Erod here. But we have a 6-game slate, so there's only so many options to go around. Houston, it looks like, is going to be one of the chalkier offenses tonight. I think we have them projected as the 2nd highest owned offense. So you're going to get a bunch of leverage that way. And Erod's a pretty good pitcher. This is some of the better pitching weather of the slate. Most games are over 70 or 80 degrees. 64 in Boston. It's a hitter's park, but beggars can't really be choosers tonight. So really, it's kind of about the talent. It's about the leverage. It's about the price. And so in GVPs, I have no problem doing that. And if you look at the handy dandy spin change field that's on the bat now, Erod is the pitcher on this slate who has added the most spin over his last 3 starts. So just kind of trending in the positive direction in that regard as well.
He did get his face punched in, I believe, against this Houston team, 2 starts ago. If that does anything for you, if you care about that so much. And Houston
I don't love that he's seen them recently. I don't care that he got his face punched in, but having seen them, that you lose a little bit for that.
I wanted to look at the splits because, of course, the other thing as far as the ownership for Houston, especially on DK, is the prices kind of not force you there, but they're really appealing. You got names like Alvarez, who's just, I know it's left on left, but Yordan Alvarez at 3.7K on DK is just egregious. I don't care who's throwing baseballs. Kyle Tucker is 3.2. Which even Altuve at 4.8 seems a little too cheap. Correct. The whole team just it feels like they're priced against Chris Sale 3 years ago or something like that. Aren't those prices weird for Houston on DK, or is that just me?
Sorry, arguing with somebody in chat. What are you saying?
What is the argument? Is it worth bringing up? I don't my eye.
Somebody says Astros are on fire. Imagine playing a struggling Erod. It's were you not listening? That's the whole argument here. On fire is not predictive. It doesn't matter. But that's why the Astros are going to be high owned. Erod's going to be low owned. You're going to get the leverage if you're playing it from a probability standpoint.
Can we say hot streaks are real? It's just you just never know when they start and stop until it's too late. Can we say that?
Yeah, they happen. It's not like anybody's denying oh, this guy is 10 for his last, or whatever. He's hitting 500 over the last week. Yeah, he's hot. He's also probably just did it by random chance, and it's not going to continue.
I was just making the point, this is DK specific, as far as the prices on Houston. You said that Houston's going to be heavily owned, and who really wants to pick on Erod? He's fine, but again, it's a short slate and yada yada. But the DK prices, Kyle Tucker at 3.2, Alvarez at 3.7, even like Altuve at 4.8, Correa at 4.6. Those guys seem a little bit, everybody seems too cheap, especially Alvarez, especially Tucker. Even if you want to punt the catcher, I guess you can play Maldonado as a potential punt. We'll get to that soon enough, but I think it's also forcing ownership, is it not?
I think so. I mean, I think Houston's fine tonight, but I'm shocked to see they're going to be the second highest owned offense. Like, I think they're a clear, like, there's a clear top two, and Houston's not one of them. They're fine. They're good. It's not like I'm like in love with Erod. It's very much a game theory play.
Is Minnesota the other one?
Yeah, it's the Yankees in Minnesota. Like, they're the clear top two offenses. There's nobody else on that level.
The tricky one with Minnesota, and we'll talk about the bats obviously in a second, but the tricky one with Minnesota is that King hasn't been great, but if we think, I guess we think that the Yankees are probably going to have the lead. They're probably going to get the half, which means they probably put their better arms later in the game, and King's not going to go beyond 5, maybe 5. So you might get 4 rough bullpen innings is kind of the retort as far as the Minnesota side.
Right. And that's certainly defensible. But if Minnesota
if it's 7-6 after 4 innings.
Yeah, you never know.
Also, it's 95 degrees. We talked about it yesterday as far as the heat in Minnesota. And,
yeah,
we spent some time, but we probably didn't talk enough about it. But it's like, yeah, the Yankees, you have Stanton and Judge against a pitcher that throws strikes and doesn't strike anybody out, and it's 95 degrees. And that's the recipe for the Yankees to go off. No Yankee lineup just yet. Maybe I have to hit a refresh button here. But and Minnesota also has got some cheap guys too. Do we have it or no?
I don't think we have it yet, but like the weather in Minnesota has been easily the hottest like all week, and it feels like it was only yesterday when people like actually noticed it and started like talking about it. But it's definitely a huge difference in weather, especially if we're comparing it to the Astros, which we kind of are right now, I guess. It's a 30 degree difference between Boston and Minnesota. Like that is massive.
Pretty standard. DJ LeMahieu, Judge, Torres, Stanton, Urshela, Sanchez, Andujar, right? Is that how they say it? I believe Gittins. We got 2K Gittins for DK. Yeah, he's batting 8th. And then you got Frazier as far as that Yankee lineup just kind of cracked for us. I don't like to pick on Hyunjin Ryu. Don't like to pick on him, but like they're, and I don't know if I want to roster him against, the White Sox who just absolutely smash lefties. So I don't know what to do with that game. I think I'm just mostly leaving it alone, especially for cash. I'm certainly not playing Rio for cash. What are your thoughts as far as Rio versus the White Sox?
I don't have a lot of interest. If we were getting a discount on him, if he was 8K, I think you could make a case at close to 10K. I don't know. I don't love it. I'd rather play Montas. I'd rather play Minor. I'd rather play Erod. He's fine, but he's just overpriced and, whatever. I'm not that interested.
We can't play Greinke, right? Like, I think he went a complete game last time out. And that's kind of what you need for him to get there because his strikeouts are so minimal. Doesn't walk anybody. He's going to throw some strikes, but, just doesn't get the ball by anybody. 18% as far as the Ks this season. There is strikeouts in that Boston lineup today. If that's an argument you want to make, heavy strikeouts, actually. Arroyo and Dahlback. Renfro, Devers strikes out plenty. Kiki's leading off at 27% as far as his Ks, but we got Verdugo back in the lineup as well. I can't roster Greinke in the year 2021. And
no, I can't either. I think Boston is the play in this game, if nothing else. Like, I think they're going to be one of the most under-owned offenses, it looks like, tonight.
Is there anybody else worth? I mean, Disco Stu is cheap. He's 6'3" on DK. I guess you could mention that, but I'm not thrilled. It's really simple. We spend a lot of time on pitchers, but it's pretty simple, isn't it, Cardi? In theory, it's simple.
Yeah, it really is. Disco Stu's got the short leash. He's got the park downgrade. I mean, he's cheap enough where you can, but I'd rather, I think it's Scherzer and Rogers and cash. I think you mix in Montas, Minor, and Erod and GPPs, and I think that's the extent of any of my pitcher interests. 3
lefties for Disco Fani for what it's worth. Good lefties too. We'll talk about them as far as hitters. And I think I don't want to say nobody, but on a 6-game slate, ownership percentages shift as far as being under-owned and all that. But I think Soto is going to be kind of, sort of, somewhat neglected in this slate, which seems kind of weird. We'll talk about that. But give me a summary as far as the arms. We'll talk about the bats in a second.
Scherzer and Rogers and Cash. There's nothing else. Anything else is bad and wrong, and you're terrible, and don't do it. In GPPs, I think Montas and Minor are good. I think you'll see a little bit of ownership on both of them. And the super off the board guy that I think makes a lot of sense in GPPs is Erod, because he's a solid pitcher. It's good weather. And you're just going to get massive leverage off of what looks like an over-owned Houston offense.
Didn't you hear, though, Houston's hot?
I did hear Houston's hot. That makes me like Erod because narratives like that drive ownership and don't actually drive production.
All right. Catcher is not sexy or exciting at all tonight. I think it's a night where a lot of people are just going to plug in one of these 2K guys on DK where you're forced to roster a catcher and save some salary and spend up elsewhere. How are you handling the catcher position?
What are the Yankees doing tonight? Sanchez is in there hitting sixth. I think Sanchez is, as much as I hate playing Sanchez, like I think he's the move. The Yankees are far and away the best offense tonight. There are two teams that project for over 5 runs today, and the Yankees project almost a full run above the Twins. The Yankees are over 6 runs in the bat. They're just easily the best offense. They're against this bad lefty in J.A. Happ, running a bunch of righties out against him with easily the best hitting weather on the slate. Sanchez, I think, is clearly the guy. If you want to punt it, that's fine. You can play, Rortvet, or you can play Riley Adams or Martin Maldonado. Like, any of them are fine. But I do think I'd probably rather get up to Gary.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I am. But if you're playing cash games tonight, I think you end up on 4 or 5 Yankees. I think that's kind of is that reasonable to say? I'm not sure if you run stuff as far as the bat, but I think it's 4 or 5 Yankees in cash. If that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's 5 actually. I think 4 might even be not enough. The Yankees are so far and away the best offense tonight.
First base. Well, I mentioned Gittins. He's 2K on DK. I don't know if you necessarily have to play him on FanDuel, but to get a 2K hitter on DK and who has legit power. We did see him. I know he's been pinch hit before. I think when a lefty or when a righties come in, I think it's happened, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen tonight. I believe he's a actual first baseman. I don't think he does the DH thing, or they don't have because he is their. Who else will be playing first for them? Yeah, it's going to be him. That's where we go in cash on DK. At least I think that's where we go in cash, which is, if he's going to be super, super chalky though, there's got to be some pivots in tournaments that make sense, especially when you consider ownership.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's your cash guy, but there are definitely tournament pivots that you can look at here. On the Twins side, you have Kirilloff and you have Sano, who are both, totally fine plays. I think the Jays are one of the sneakier offenses on this slate. It's a good park for power. Keuchel's a lefty who, doesn't give up a lot of home runs, but he is a lefty who does have kind of a wide platoon split. So these Jays righties are good first and foremost. And the team projects for like 3% ownership. They project as one of the lowest owned teams on the slate. So playing just the good Jays hitters like Vlad here, I think as a one-off or in a Jays stack makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I know. And people just don't pick on Keuchel for good reason, all those ground balls. And he has given up more homers this year for what it's worth. The homer and the fly ball is a little bit higher than it normally is. And yeah, you're right. Vladdy's going to kind of go somewhat, ignored. He's reasonably expensive, but that's justifiable. He's had an awesome season. Of course, that's inflated to some extent, I would say. You could argue, Dunedin, that down there in Florida, that those numbers have been inflated to some extent. But, for sure, you could take Keuchel deep. Even Abreu on the other side. Like, nobody's going to play Abreu in that game against Ryu. I don't think, relatively speaking, short slate, yada, yada. Is there anything else of note? Sano, Kirilloff is batting third there versus King, which is pretty interesting. Sano, we've seen struggle this year, but he did bang one out last night off a cold, just barely scraped the wall. Good for him. When Oppo, he's pretty cheap too. Otherwise, that's it. That's first base. Anything else?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Second base, keystone position. What do you have for me?
If you have, it's tough. Like on the high end, I think Altuve is the guy that people will maybe gravitate towards. but I'm not sure you have to go with Altuve. Like, we have Polanco and LeMahieu in this game that I do like better. The bat likes them a little more, not a lot more, a little more straight up over Altuve, and you're going to save what, 600 and 700 respectively. So Polanco leading off is fine. LeMahieu leading off, presumably, leading off for the Yankees. They're both too cheap in the best offensive environment of the night. So I think you play one of Polanco or LeMahieu, probably Polanco, and you can make a case for Altuve. And then in GPPs, you're just doing stuff to be different. You know, we mentioned Vlad already. Marcus Semien is more expensive than people want to pay for on a slate with Altuve cheaper, Polanco cheaper, LeMahieu cheaper. But he's leading off against Keuchel. So I think Semien's a really good pivot. And yeah.
It's a good time to mention. We were talking about this pre-show about it's the Marlins. A lot of it, nobody really likes the roster. Well, some people like if Eric's lurking in chat, he always asks us about the Marlins. I was tipped off. Apparently, he had a big night last night, so congratulations to him. Jazz Chisholm is overpriced. He's $5K, but he's also facing arguably the worst pitcher in Chichi Gonzalez. Chichi Gonzalez has really nothing to offer. He's not striking anybody out. He's walking too many dudes. If you walk Jazz, he absolutely will run. He could steal second. He could steal third. He can create his own basic, bootleg home run, if you want to call it that. That many points as well, too, which is the old Billy Hamilton or something like that. But, the Marlins is a general thought on this slate. It's not a great ballpark, but it's the best matchup, and they're overpriced, pretty severely overpriced, some of these guys. But you could also make it work, and in tournaments, you kind of embrace that. You embrace the terrible prices because other people say, come on, I'm not paying $5K for Jazz when, I don't know, Altuve's sitting there right at 4.8 and Polanco and yada, yada. So you have general thoughts as far as the Marlins?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, they are overpriced, and I think they're going to be underowned as a result of that. After the Yankees and the Twins, the Marlins project as it looks like they project as the 5th best stack tonight in a raw sense. So that's pretty good. And they're going to be super low owned. So I'm fine with Marlins.
Anything else at second base that's worth mentioning? You talked about Altuve, and in my shell, quote unquote cash lineup on DK, I did have him in there, but it probably leads to like a 2v2 or a 3v3 if I want to get Sanchez, because I was putting catcher, and that feels like a decision point for me if I'm going to go all the way up to Sanchez or all the way down to, the dude in Minnesota as far as catchers, and just kind of changes my shuffle a little bit, which leads me to an interesting decision point. LeMahieu, you like DJ LeMahieu?
Yeah, I like DJ. I mentioned liking kind of a sneaky Boston stack, so Christian Arroyo as part of that, I think is fine.
What do you have for me as far as third base?
So third base is a spot where you can definitely go a few different directions, but again, the guys from the Yankees and the Twins are going to be the best plays here. We have Donaldson, who's the top raw play on the slate, and we have Gio Urshela, who's 4K. I still don't have the Yankees lineup. I got to refresh this. Where's he batting tonight?
He's batting 5th.
He's batting 5th. So Urshela and Donaldson are the two cash plays here, I think. Bregman is fine as a one-off, in your Astro stacks, but I do think that stack's going to be a little overowned. Rafael Devers is, projected right now to basically go unowned. Yeah. And he's good. So I think the Red Sox are nice tonight. I think you can make a case for who else are we looking at? Wow, that's about it, huh? Third base sucks.
Third base is rough tonight. It's not very deep. Shortstop is, you got neither with his most appealing matchup, and you said the weather's not great there in Boston as well, but you got Correa and Bogarts as far as skill, as far as actual talent. And you have the same deal in that Chicago-Toronto game where Bichette and Anderson are fun players to roster, but not necessarily the best matchups per se. And then you got Polanco, who's super cheap on FanDuel, pretty cheap on DK as well, 4.1K. I think he's 2.7 on FanDuel. So Torres at 4.3 on DK. Where are you landing? Where are you starting as far as shortstop?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yankees and Twins. Like, if you have a cash lineup and you don't have anyone, a player from any team other than Yankees and Twins, you're fine. Like, that's probably the right way to build tonight, is just Yankees and just Twins. So it's Polanco or Glaber, whether you could play Polanco at second. but you can play him at short also. You can play Glaber at short. We like this spot. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Bo Bichette, though, is really interesting because we have like Vlad over 5K. We have Semyon over 5K. Bichette's 4-4. Like, he's the one guy that you're getting kind of a discount on here. So I like Bichette as a one-off. I like him in your J stacks. I like Xander in your Red Sox stacks. Correa's fine, I guess.
Will you allow me to play Scherzer and Brandon Crawford in the same lineup? The best way to get through Scherzer is lefty power. And you're also getting a discount. And if you believe Crawford is the player he's been this year and last year, he should be like a 5K player, like for real. So you're getting a massive discount here. He's 3.5K. He hits a solo job. I mean, you're kind of threading the needle here, but like Scherzer gives up a homer, big whoop. Who cares? That's fine. Just a thought. That's one way to be different.
Projects well. Like, if you ignore like the 2K guys that you don't really need to play, the top point per dollar guys in the bat are Polanco, Torres, and then Crawford. So I don't mind it. Like you said, Scherzer's weakness is lefty power. And so I have no problem with Crawford here getting the park upgrade, hitting cleanup. In a lineup with Scherzer, I mean, maybe. I don't know if this slate it's necessary, but you could. Well,
I got to be different if I'm playing Scherzer and all the Yankees and sprinkling some Twins. So that's one way to be different.
True. Yeah. So yeah, if you have a lineup like that, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's just sort of like I'm trying to think, and we're going to talk about the Yankees again because we're getting to the outfield. And what do you know? Judge and Stanton are going to be popular today, super popular. And this isn't like we always give this isn't like basketball. Like the top players aren't the top players always, and it's just like a variance of how much. It's very possible in the 4 or 5 at bats that Stanton gets or Judge gets, he gets 0 points or 4 points or 7 points, or even if you just hit a solo home run, you go 1 for 4, you're fine. You can survive that. It's okay if you don't have the guy that hit a solo home run and did nothing else. Not a big deal. That said, our starting points in the outfield, it's Stanton and it's Judge, right?
Yeah, it is. You're playing definitely at least one of them in cash games. You probably can't play both, and you get a much bigger discount on Stanton, so he would be my priority. If you can play both, though, great. Otherwise, you also have Clint Frazier here, who is Frazier's in the lineup, right?
Yeah, he's 2-3.
Hitting 9th, but he's 2-3, so he's super cheap. So I think you're probably strongly considering Frazier. You're strongly considering Twins outfielders. Trevor Larnach is the main one. He's 2.2K, and he's where is he tonight?
A lot of power.
Yeah, he's hitting 5th tonight, which is fine. You can consider Yordan Alvarez. The Astros are good tonight. I just don't like them as much as the Yankees and Twins, but Alvarez is totally fine. Cruz is probably too expensive for cash.
Cruz is not homered. Speaking of, not to cut you off or anything, but Cruz, as far as hot streaks and cold streaks, he's not homered since the 19th of last month. It's like 47, 48, 49 at bats or something like that, a big chunk. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he dealing with a bit of a wrist injury? I think he was.
Yeah, he might have been. And wrist injuries are rough because a lot of times wrist injuries linger and they sap power. And so anytime a guy has a wrist injury, like I always kind of there's a red flag that goes up.
That's also what, a 41, 42-year-old wrist? It's an old wrist.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be probably in terms of its ability to like heal itself.
Yeah, he's been absolutely incredible and a hell of a run. And I'm sure there's some commentary on some parts of that. But I mean, good for him. It's he goes out there and DHs and crushes. And I was looking at the batted ball stuff, and he's still he's hitting the ball. You're talking about Brandon Crawford. He's in the top 5, top 10 percentile as far as batted ball stuff as well. So he's still smashing the ball. I meant to look at the last 14 days or the last month, and I did not get a chance to get to it. But yeah, just a note. And the price does reflect it on FanDuel, where it's like 3.4 or 3.5. He's pretty cheap over there. On DK, they're asking for 5K, which, you can pay that off as well. We talked about Soto as far as a potential way to get away from the chalk. And like Soto's in a perfectly fine matchup. And you can argue he's one of the 3 best hitters in all of baseball. I would imagine. Where is the bet? Is he Acuna and Soto probably 1, 2? Am I missing somebody?
You're missing Mike Trout.
Oh yeah, I forgot he still plays. Does he still play?
I mean, he's hurt, but he still plays. But The gap
Yeah.
between Trout and Soto has gotten very close in the bat, and Acuna's third, but like not as close. At least last I looked. Let me see.
Where's Otani out of curiosity? Because I
Oh,
don't know. Yeah, where does he rank? Is he top 10 now, or according to what the bat is spitting out? I
Yeah,
mean,
Otani is 11. It looks like it's and Acuna is not even 3. Vlad is slightly ahead of Acuna at this point. So, but it's Trout and Soto 1-2.
you got anything else as far as the outfield? You want to hit on some stacks for the people? We'll turn it over to chat. We'll bring Devin on again. Fire off your questions. Devin's compiling them. Whatever is on your mind. We always say like, hey, we can't talk about everybody. We kind of sort of talked about most everybody, but if we missed a player you're thinking about, or a team that we haven't really focused on, or a pitcher we haven't focused on, by all means, we're happy to elaborate on that player. Ask us in chat. And if you want to have a thought as far as tournament cash, let that be known as well. As the site helps also as far as answering the question. But if we missed any outfielders, by all means, fire out a couple more. Otherwise, give me some stacks you like, and we'll bring Devin on.
Yeah, I love the Yankees and the Twins. The Yankees are going to be the overwhelming chalk, but they're so good tonight. Like, I don't mind playing Yankee stacks. Just find ways to play them in a different way than other people, or be different around them. And I like the Twins like a lot. I think they're clearly number 2, and we have them projected number 4. It looks like right now. So I like them quite a bit. And then in terms of like lower owned, sneakier stuff, Boston and Toronto, I really like, and I think Miami is fine, but Toronto in particular, you're getting good prices on them. The matchup is solid. The talent is there for all of these guys. I kind of don't know why they're projected so low owned. They're good tonight.
How is this the first time I became aware of a player by the name of Sky Bolt? There's a person named Sky Bolt is playing baseball tonight for Oakwood. How do I not know this guy?
I've never heard of him either. Sky Bolt. That is a cool name.
Sky Bolt is batting 9th for the Oakland A's. Unless, I went on Fangraphs. There's an official person. He's 27. I don't think he's played much in the majors. And also, I always do this for certain teams. Obviously, you'll know why in a second. How many lefties are in that Kansas City bullpen? Because I'm wondering about guys like Pinder, and they're going to get the hook and yada yada. Just one lefty in that pen behind Minor. So if you're rostering Pinder, you better get there early. We see how Brown is ready to relieve him. They always just certain teams have different philosophies, and I'm obsessed with pinch hitters. Sometimes to my own downfall at times, because the guy that's going to get pinch hit 4 homers in the first inning, and I'm already buried, and it doesn't matter. But yeah, Sky Bolt batting 9th for Oakland. I wonder if he's in the player pool. I think they're saying he's 2K. All right. Devin, are you with us? Do you know who Sky Bolt is?
I don't know who Sky Bolt is. No, I'm sorry.
Are you intrigued though? Admit you're intrigued.
I was about to pull up the player pool on my side and do a quick search, and then you called my name. So I got summoned.
Oh, he's Usain Bolt's brother.
I was going to ask that.
That cannot be true.
I don't think it's true at all. I totally made that up.
I don't think baseball is big in. I mean, is there any? Well, I wonder if there's any Jamaican baseball players. There probably
somebody
is.
In chat. Look it up.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, I was gonna. Who can Only Devin can multitask. We want to give you one more task.
No.
You have some questions for us?
I have too many questions. Yeah, we have to jump into these. Okay. We got a bunch actually, so we'll just we'll go back and forth. Sound good?
Sure.
And we'll try and avoid whichever one of you is searching on Google currently.
I'm doing all right. Shelly Davis was Jamaican. All right, and Devon White. There you go. Those were both good players back in the day.
Cardi,
go ahead, Devin.
Cardi, are we doing a Toronto stack?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tournaments?
Yep.
And Dean, you were on a Houston stack, correct?
Yeah, I like Houston more than Cardi does.
Naturally. Shannon asks, are Yankees going to be 50% owned today?
Well, let's pull up and see what we have as far as the
probably not that high, no.
That's a pretty big number.
It's a big number. It's going to be a big number, though. It's going to be very big because it's not hard to get Scherzer and Yankees.
48 on Stanton currently on DK, 38% on Chris Gittens, who on the Plate IQ report, if you take a look, has got just a bunch of zeros in his 3 plate appearances so far.
Yeah.
Which is not encouraging. But
like the book says you're supposed to be lower than 48% in Stanton. It says you're supposed to be lower, especially Gittins at 38%. Like you're supposed to be lower than that.
As a tournament player, I cannot wait to get off this show and hit the X button on both of those. Or at least put them in a player group at most of one. Eric, our contrarian king in chat here, wants to know, are we doing any San Fran stacks versus Scherzer tonight?
Cardi. I talked about the one-off as far as Crawford. I guess you can use the same ploy for Belt, I guess, but I don't like that nearly as much. Your thoughts there, Cardi?
I like the Crawford one-off a lot. I think a full stack is too cute.
All right. Stan says, thoughts on Montas. Dean, you said you probably could step down, or could probably, or has been disappointing this year, right? That's what you said?
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. And on this slate, he's fine. And the price kind of reflects that too. So, you know, and he can go out there and get 6 innings. And he's a perfectly league average, maybe a little slightly above league average pitcher. A nice ballpark to pitch in. I know it's a Preston Case there in Oakland with all that foul territory, but he probably doesn't get blown up. He probably doesn't win the slate. He probably puts up around, what is the bat projection for Montas? Around 15 points, 16 points on DK?
I think it was about 16 or 17 when I looked. Closer to 18.
Okay.
Really good pitching weather there tonight. So I like Montas.
All right. Jason wants to know, GPPs, Mad Max or Trevor Rogers if you only take one? Cardi.
I guess take Max. I mean, they're both going to be chalky, and Max is better, but they're both great.
Hasn't been using any of that spider tag, has he?
Spider tag. It's a combination of sunscreen. I'm learning all about the stuff that they're using, but yeah, I don't know about the spider tag. Allegedly, he's not one of those guys, supposedly, but
it's it's the passed down from generations before. I don't know. It's the way things have done.
The thing is, almost everybody is one of those guys. Like for people who are like, oh yeah, like it's only Trevor Bauer, it's only Garrett Cole. Like no, it's like 80 or 90% of pitchers in baseball.
Was it Kevin Pillar? One of the Mets came out and said they would bet their salary that Jacob deGrom uses nothing. Did you see that quote?
Yeah, it was a lot of Mets guys.
Yeah,
someone on Twitter was like trying to say that he was doing it, and like half the Mets team like jumped in and were like, no, deGrom doesn't.
Nitto, his catcher, came out and said like he doesn't use anything. He's like, he's just that damn good, and that's that. But one of the players said they would wager their salary, which I think it was Pillar.
Wow.
I could be wrong.
All right.
Yeah, he's probably a minimum salary guy, and he's got plenty of money in the bank. He's near the end of his career, but still the point.
He's making $1 million or $2 million. He's not min salary.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
only $1 million.
He's got to be veteran minimum, whatever that is. He's not getting beyond that, is he?
Well,
let's
move on to some more questions. Cardi, Doug wanted to know in chat, does the Bat X and the Bat Classic give the same projection for pitchers, or do they take separate things into account?
It's going to be similar. It's going to use the same underlying projection for the pitcher, but the Bat X projection is going to project the pitcher against the Bat X version of the hitters, so they will be a little different.
All right, that is probably a perfect answer. Matt wants to know any stack with more than a 1.0 leverage that we like, and I thought this would be a good time to review some Slate IQ and see if Cardi liked any of the stacks that we're currently projecting on here. So let me give that a quick refresh.
By the way, as you're refreshing, I did Google Kevin Pillar. Good for him. Signed a 2-year, $6.5 million contract this season. So, yeah, that's the cost of breaking your nose, I suppose. But
$3 million a year. I mean, he's a great defender, and he's an okay hitter. It's not like he's a zero for a team.
And it looks like, based on the current Slate IQ, the first stack that winners are using with leverage is Miami at 6.1%, with the field at 5.1%.
There you go.
Definitely, it's not the top. There's a 4 or so ahead of it, but still 6% to 6, 7, 8, 9%. So not that big of a step down. KC stack, are we doing that tonight, Dean?
I don't think so. I like some of the KC bats. I hate that ballpark, and I think Montas is pretty good. Like, I think KC puts up 3 or 4 runs and nothing really sexy there. I'm not excited about it, but if you're running 150, of course you can get there, but I'm not running 150.
All right. Daniel wants to know, and I'm going to repeat this one as it was typed. What about J.A. Happ, LOL?
No.
Well, it's also not, it's not, it's the A is silent, but that's his name. It's J Happ. But yeah, we're not playing J Happ. But what about leverage, Cardi? Like, we're not playing Happ, right? There's no chance.
No, you want to play a leverage pitcher, play Erod. Don't play Happ.
Not lowercase L. You want the capital L. Stan asks, any interest in a Miami stack? Stan must have beat Eric to it today. We got on that.
Yeah.
We think they're interesting.
Yeah,
we think they're interesting. How would you stack that up, Cardi? I assume you got Jazz, Marte, Aguiar. I guess you can play Alfaro if you're on DK. If you're forced to play a catcher, he's a decent catcher.
Yeah, you don't have to get cute with it. Play the good hitters. Fill the catcher with Alfaro on DK. That's fine.
All right. Daniel wanted to know, and I thought this would be a good time to kind of talk about some potential hypothetical situations. You had kind of touched on in the beginning about Washington maybe doing some funny business and, heaven forbid, a postponement, but it is the first game on the slate, so maybe we can just take a minute or so here to kind of talk about if that were to happen, where do you think ownership's going to go?
As you're asking that question, Roth tweeted out 29 minutes ago, not great in D.C., rain is pretty much stationary. It'll rain itself out eventually, so a late start and play is very much on the table and probably the likely outcome, ? Ron Burgundy. But it'll also take some patience. Yeah, and he has a radar picture as well, too. So maybe I'll go ahead and drop this link in chat for people.
I've got it on the screen share. I've got it up.
Yeah, so, okay. I don't know what to do. And it's right out the gate. Cardi, what do we do? Do we play him? Do we not play him? And is Washington going to be patient? In theory, they want to play this game, but once its first pitch time goes beyond it, it's handed over to the umpires. I don't know.
I'm not a weatherman. I don't play one on TV. They have incentive to try to get this game in. They're the heaviest favorite on the slate. They should want to play this and they should want to win. But it's Washington. Like, if it was any other team, you'd feel a little more confident about it. But the one thing I'll say is that the drop off from Scherzer is pretty darn big. So, you have to think that it's like a pretty strong risk of getting rained out before you jump off Scherzer.
So definitely,
Montas would get a ton of ownership, by the way. A lot of ownership, I think, would shuffle to Montas.
It would float a little to Rogers and a lot to Montas, I would think.
Definitely follow Kevin Roth on Twitter at KevinRothWX, and he'll be updating everyone. And that's about bringing us up to the end of the show, Dean. So you want to go ahead and take us home?
Oh, man, if Scherzer somehow gets wiped out, like Rogers' ownership on DK is going to be like 90%.
To the moon!
It's going to be ridiculous. And he's a good pitcher, but he's only going to throw like 90 pitches. But like, what's the alternative? It's kind of the question. And it'll be an interesting conversation as far as maybe we'll get an update from Roth soon enough. He's not going to be at crunch time. It's going to be Grant. It's going to be Christie and Cheese is good. Dave Potts. Taking you guys live to lock again. If you guys are premium members, you know how that goes down. You know how it works. You can ask them questions as well. Ask the same questions you ask myself and Cardi, and hopefully they match up. And if they don't, go with whoever you trust the most. I don't know. Do like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check out the bat from Derek Cardi. Check out Derek Cardi's article today on ESPN regarding weather. That was definitely a good read, especially if you're not into that kind of thing. It's super, super important as far as baseball. That said, we got to go. Devin's got to produce another show. That was Cardi. That was Devin. This was baseball. I was Dean. We're out of here. Holler.